Hi, this is a makeup recording to make up for the lost video capture during the class. Um, I'm going to kind of focus on the homework assignment and start to talk about concepts from the homework assignment's perspective. So hopefully this will help some of you to do the homework assignment and also learn about the concepts at the same time. I'm just making sure that I'm recording from the right channel and looks like everything is working. That's good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Our homework assignment is functions and subroutines, and you have to start with this particular database. So the first thing you want to do is to save link as on the website and save it to a particular folder. I have saved it already. I'll go ahead and save it again, and this time overwrite the content, overwrite the previous file just to make sure. And let's go ahead and go there. Okay. So open the file from the downloads folder, and now we have everything here. So what your homework assignment needs to do is to go to two particular forms. The first one is contact details, and the second one is contact list. Let's take a look at contact details first, and we'll go ahead and use a design view because we have to take a look at one of the handlers of one of the event handlers of business phone first. So we go to business phone and we right click, go to properties, and go to the event tab. You can see that before update already has a procedure associated with it. We'll go to the VBA window to take a look at this code here. This is a event handler that gets executed right before the data that is presented in the form is updated in the actual database. So this is our last chance to validate and make sure all the fields are typed in correctly. According to this, we are going to check whether the phone number is a valid phone number or not. And this part here, using the square brackets to enclose business space phone, is needed because the name of the control has a space in it. Whenever you have a control that has a name that includes a space, you have to use square brackets to enclose it in VBA. And then we have dot value because we are looking at the value property of the text box. The most important part is we are calling a function called isValidPhoneNumber in order to see whether the phone number is actually correct or valid or not. Now this is a function, it is not a subroutine because in VBA those two are distinct, they are not the same thing. And when we go to modules and go to module validate, double click on that, we see that there's a stub function here. Okay, this is called a stub function because it doesn't really contain the actual code to do the validation. It is called a function and not a subroutine because it returns a Boolean value. You can tell that it has as Boolean at the very end of the line that defines the function. That means wherever you call is a valid phone number, wherever you call this function, it will eventually be replaced by a Boolean value, which means it is either going to be true or false. And getting back to our form, this is where we are calling the function. Okay, the function call goes from here and it ends all the way out here. And that means this entire part, the highlighted part, is going to be replaced by a Boolean value. It's either true or false. You can definitely apply negation to a Boolean value that is either true or false. So this entire thing determines whether we should go into the conditional statement to cancel the to cancel the update operation, or we just let the update happen without any problems, which is the else case that is not specified because there's no action associated with the else of this conditional statement. Okay, so that's the current setup. When you download the file, this is the way it is already set up. When you read the homework assignment, first change is valid phone number in the module validate module, so that it accepts only one of the following phone number formats. So what that means is when you go to the VBA window and go to valid module validate, what you need to do is to change this expression here. There are several ways to do it. You can use a conditional statement, or you can just use an assignment statement to do it. You can make a very long expression, as the right hand side of the assignment statement. There are several ways to do it, but essentially what we want to do is to make this function return a value of true if and only if the phone number is in one of these formats. Okay, 3 numbers, a dash, and then 4 numbers, and etc. We also want to take empty as accepted. This is something that you cannot do. Let me switch back to VBA. That is something that you cannot do in the subroutine, because when you try to use a null value to pass as a parameter, okay, let's go back to where it is passed here. If business phone dot value is null, that means this subroutine call, this function call is going to crash. It's going to give you a runtime error right away. So what you need to do is to check whether it is null before you even attempt this part of the expression. There are, once again, several ways to do it. You can either use a conditional statement. You can change this conditional statement, change its structure to accommodate for the fact that a phone number can be empty, or you can change this expression here as well, to take that into consideration. But either case, you have to use the isNull function, which is a built-in function. And you have to do it first to check whether business space phone dot value is a null value or not. If it is, everything is good and the update can go ahead. If it is not, then you have to validate, because if the value is not null, that means there is a phone number specified. If there is a phone number specified, then you have to call isValidPhoneNumber in order to double check and make sure that phone number is expressed in one of the formats that we do allow. So at this point we have talked about all the way up to here. Okay. And then the next thing you have to do is to do the same thing to the other phone numbers. We have 3 other phone numbers. We have home, mobile, and fax phone numbers. And you have to go to the before update event handler and basically just copy and paste what you have for business phone, except the message box has to be changed, because you don't want to display the message and say the business phone number is invalid for all the other cases. That takes care of this part. Change the error message. Once you are done with the contact detail form, move on to the contact list form. Add the validation logic to all the phone number fields. So that basically just means more copy and pasting, because what you need to do is to go to contact list, and let's open it in design view. And over here we have the same thing. We have home phone, mobile phone, fax phone, and business phone. So you have to add the before update event handler, or specify it correctly for all of these cases. You can see that it is already specified, except it is empty in this case. So you have to change it and basically mirror the logic that you have in the other form in a contact and detail form. It is not right for a contact not to have any phone number, and basically what this paragraph is saying is, for the entire form itself, let me see which form the assignment is dealing with. For the contact detail form, in other words, let's switch back to contact details. For this entire form, the form itself has a before update event handler. To find the form itself, you can use the drop down box here and go to the form itself. Okay, just select form, and now we are looking at event handlers that apply to the entire form. You can see that an event handler is also quote unquote specified here, but when you go there, you can see that it is just a stub. It is empty. And what you need to do here, in this part of the subroutine, is to make sure that at least one of the phone numbers is not null. Null is acceptable for each one, but you don't want all 4 to be null. You want at least one to be a non-null value. You can do that, using a single expression. you have to use one of the Boolean operators to kind of join multiple parts together. I'll leave it up to you to kind of figure out how to do that part. And I think this should cover all the details that you need to know about this project itself. Now let's go back and talk about some of the other topics, even though they are not needed in order to do your homework assignment. One part has to do with the rationale of using subroutines. There are definitely a few reasons, and they're all important. The most important part is a subroutine allows you to reuse code without copying and pasting. Copy and paste is easy to do, but it makes your code very difficult to maintain. When you use a subroutine in order to share the same code from different places, then it is a lot easier to maintain, because even if the subroutine contains faulty logic or faulty code, you only have to fix it once instead of fixing it every time everywhere that you copy and paste at. And that's one really big important reason to use subroutines. Subroutines can take parameters. A parameter is basically extra information for a subroutine so that the subroutine can perform what it needs to do. For the most part, you can look at a parameter like an inbox to an office. When you tell a person in an office and say, I want you to process this form, that implies that you have to give the form to that person to process to begin with. And that's what a parameter is. It is the information that you're giving the subroutine to process. There are two types of parameters. One is called byval and one is called byref. We haven't really talked about that last time, we haven't talked about that on Monday, so we'll talk about that next Monday. And here we have some examples. This is already a subroutine. It is a before update subroutine. And when you look at this code, it has a few kind of important elements. The first thing is, we identify this one as a sub, which means it is a subroutine. The difference between the subroutine and a function is a subroutine does not return a value, whereas a function does return a value. In this case, the name of the subroutine is form underscore before update. That's the name of the subroutine. Every time you want to call this subroutine, you have to refer to this name. We have one parameter here, which is cancel. Cancel is actually a Boolean, but I guess in VBA, Booleans and integers are somewhat interchangeable. And then we have end sub here at the very end to mark the end of the subroutine. Inside the subroutine, we have some code from line 2 to line 5. It is no different from any other code that we have written in this class, except in this case, you have to be careful because cancel refers to the parameter cancel that is defined up here. So whenever you mention cancel, you're actually talking about the parameter cancel that is passed in from the caller of the subroutine. The caller of the subroutine is the part of the program that invokes or call out so that the subroutine will execute. The explanation is down here as well, so I encourage you to also read the explanation. This part talks about a subroutine versus a function. A function in this case, like sum, is going to return a value, even though I did not specify it returns an integer. That basically just says that sum can return just about any kind of value. In order to specify the return value, you use the name of the function as the left-hand side of an assignment statement. Then whatever the right-hand side specify will become the return, quote-unquote, return value. And the interesting about this is the return value of a function, just such as this one here, can be used anywhere that an integer is expected. That's because x is an integer, y is an integer, so x plus y has an implicit type of an integer, and that makes sum an integer as well. So that means the invocation or the calling of sum, wherever it appears, excuse me, I take it back. It can go anywhere an integer is expected. If counter is an integer, then the right-hand side of an assignment to counter is also an integer, and that's why sum can be called as the right-hand side of this expression. Here we have a more interesting example. Because sum PQ is an integer, it goes into the place of an integer, which is the first parameter of sum in the outer invocation of sum. And that's why we can nest invocations of sum by doing something like this. We haven't talked about byval and byref yet, and I will leave this topic for next Monday, which is our last class meeting as well. And I think that should be it. I think we spent some time on Monday to talk about the solution of the previous homework assignment. I think all the people who were in the class understood that one. We thought that the first assignment was actually more difficult than the second one, and I spent some time to explain that. So this is it. I think I have made up for at least the core or the essential part of Monday's lecture, and I hope you guys find it useful.